Welcome back, everybody, to Exotic Car Playplace. Thanks for joining in again. And today's discussion is really about BMW and Lexus depreciation. We know all vehicles depreciate, some a lot worse than others. And if you watch previous videos, we made a comparison about BMW and Lexus reliability, but today we're going to talk about depreciation, which brand depreciates harder and why that is. Let's get into it now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with Exotic Car Playplace, and today so first let's get into some of the BMW factors and how it impacts their depreciation rate. Many reasons why the depreciation is impacted the way it is. And in the BMW world, of course, they do a lot of things to constantly keep models changing, to have prospective buyers come in, also to sell to existing buyers for the latest and the greatest. BMW is always changing, innovating. Their body styles are always upgraded. The performance is always upgraded. Let's look at some examples. I mean, BMW, they've got run flat tires. Those get expensive. They're typically 2 to 3 times as much money as a standard normal tire. BMWs always utilize larger wheel packages too, to improve the overall looks and dynamics of the driving. They also use large brakes, often with 4 or 6 piston calipers, rarely used in cars like Lexus and such. These parts all start to cost a lot of money. Brakes, tires, rims. You scratch a rim on the curb, that's going to be huge bucks to replace that rim. They also use lots of technology under the hood. Turbocharging. You can get 4-cylinder turbos, 6-cylinder turbos, or twin turbo V8 engines in virtually every BMW model today. Well, turbocharging costs money to manufacture, it costs money to maintain, and when it breaks, it costs a lot of money to replace parts. So turbochargers are very expensive, along with all the other components existing within the engine, because it is the latest and the greatest. They're pushing and stressing the engines more than they ever have. A lot of the vehicles in the BMW lineups, particularly the M3s, M4s, M2s, a lot of those come with a double clutch transmission, DCT. Well, that DCT is produced in lower numbers. If it breaks, and when it breaks, it will cost a fortune to replace, and a lot of people don't want any part of that. So reselling a vehicle with a double clutch transmission is a very niche transmission. In other words, not a lot of people want that type of vehicle, and it becomes a harder item to sell. We just look along and you see vehicles everywhere. So another major impact of the depreciation rate is the mass amount of vehicles on the market. That's right, it's a niche car brand, but yet there's a lot of cars that hit the used car market. Why? Just look around. There's a lot of vehicles out here, and they're all for sale. But what ends up happening, particularly as you get into the 5 Series, 7 Series, a lot of the larger vehicles, X Series vehicles, a lot of the people lease them. When they come up for lease after 3 years, they hit the market, it actually floods the market, and there's mass amounts, overabundance of vehicles available, and that, of course, in itself drives prices down. So then I reviewed a bunch of different vehicles available on the autotrader.com website, and I scoured specifically vehicles within 500-mile radius of Los Angeles. Why? Because that's the vast majority of BMW purchases. It's a very highly dense area, and honestly, lots of great selection. So I chose that demographic, and I picked cars that were 2016, and I compared them with the new price MSRP, and we talk about a percentage loss. So the first car on the list was a 2016 BMW 340i, which had an original MSRP of about $46,000, and you could find lots of them for about $29,000 US, of course, on the market today for a 2016. Depreciated to the point where they retained about 63% of their original value. So let's try another one, a 2016 BMW X3 28i. And these originally retailed around $42,000, and today you can find lots of them with low Ks for about $25,000. This yields only about a 60% retention value. Now understand, that's probably one of the better vehicles in the BMW lineup because it's an SUV, moderate size, serves a lot of needs. So that's another example. And the last vehicle that I have on my BMW list as a comparison is the 640i. That has the turbocharged 6-cylinder engine. So these vehicles retailed for a whopping $80,000, and now really nice examples with low miles can be had for about $36,000. That's right, under 50%. We're closer to 45% retention value on a 640i coupe. Why? Largely because it's a very, very niche vehicle, and again, people equate that with high maintenance costs because of the turbocharged 6. So now Lexus has its entirely different phenomenon when it comes to depreciation. And a large part of that has to do because its brother Toyota, Lexus being similar companies or essentially the same company, has a much broader impact to the general population, a lot more popularity to people across all sorts of financial borders. This is a car company that appeals to more people than BMW, which happens to be more niche, and that is a positive impact for Lexus and its depreciation rates. Reliability and depreciation being somewhat mutually exclusive. However, in this case, these Lexus vehicles often hold their value very well, largely because after warranty, once warranty's up, these vehicles tend to hold their value quite well because for the simple fact that they keep things simple. For example, wheel packages, smaller wheels, a simpler setup. If you look at calipers, a little bit simpler than you'll find in a BMW. The brake discs are dramatically smaller in a similar sized SUV. Brakes are smaller. They'll use a simpler transmission. For example, you'll never find a double clutch transmission in a Lexus. Also, seldom vehicles use turbos in the Lexus world. Some of the NX turbos now do, but generally speaking, turbos are a newer technology for the Lexus brand. Things are meant to be simple here, and as a result, after 3 years, depreciation doesn't take a significant hit with these vehicles. They carry a lot of the parts from year to year to year. They go with what they know. In other words, they don't keep redesigning everything. They're not constantly innovating from year upon year, often like some of the German brands. They utilize the same engines many years over, and as a matter of fact, they carry a lot of those same engines and drivetrains through many other models, as well as other brands like Toyota. So there's another huge factor in all of this, and we spoke about it with the BMWs, and that is about supply and demand, and how BMW suffers from that because of all the excess vehicles that wind up going through the system as a result of lease returns and all that fun stuff. Now, the Lexus, on the other hand, there's still lots of vehicles that go through lease, but let's do a quick comparison. Now, I did that same search on the autotrader.com. I did a 500-mile radius search around Los Angeles area, and I was able to find 15,000 used BMWs within the marketplace available for sale, of all shapes and sizes, every type of variety that you can imagine. In that same search spot, I was only able to find 7,000 Lexus vehicles. So in other words, there was only slightly less than half Lexus available within that same radius as there were BMWs. And the simple fact that Lexus have such a great stellar reputation for dependability, where does that leave you? Those vehicles are more sought after, and the BMWs struggle selling on that highly dense marketplace. So the first vehicle that I'm talking about is the IS350, which was about $43,000, and now you can find them for about 28 grand all over the place, but that's still a 67% retention value. How about an RX 450h? Yeah, quite expensive mid-size SUV. They were about $53,000, and now you can find them for about 37 grand US, and that holds a massive 70% retention value. How about the RC like over there? $45,000 down to $32,000 now in 3 years. That's 71% retention value on those cars. That's exceptionally great. So really, at the end of the day, what's the difference? The BMWs lose about half of their value within the first 3 years of its lifespan. Lexus, on the other hand, only loses maybe a third of its value in the first 3 years. So yes, in other words, Lexus does hold better value, depreciates less than BMW, and largely because of its simplicity, lower maintenance costs, once it's off a warranty, is much more enticing for the majority of owners out there. So with all that said, does that have anything to do with reliability? Is BMW or Lexus more reliable? You really got to find out. After all, BMW and Lexus are both very, very solidly built products. So again, as always, guys, make sure you click that link. That's going to take you to the BMW Lexus reliability discussion. And if you click that link, more on the Lexus brand as well. I really hope to see you guys soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.